Most sites have a high search visibility but zero AI citations. And the gap is diagnosable, it's measurable, and it is fixable with what we call a structured 3-layer audit. I'm Nickolass Jensen, and this is SEO in 2026, Additional Insights.
Nickolass, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
My number one tip is that most sites have high search visibility, but zero AI citations. And the gap is diagnosable, it's measurable, and it is actually fixable with what we call a structured 3-layer audit.
Wow, okay, we'll certainly dive into that. It seems to me that many site owners probably don't understand that they have this problem. So as a site owner, how do you know if you have this problem to begin with?
The first thing I would do is to dig into the data you have access to and ask your web agency what kind of data they have access to. The first thing they can do is ask ChatGPT about something which they know they are good at and what they do. And then they can go say, okay, which companies are good at changing tires on trucks in my region, for example? And then look at the answer and see what it suggests. And if you're not in that answer, you know that you have to do something. That's the first thing. And you can do that with any kind of service, any kind of product. You can ask the same question, make a list of 10 questions about your company and your services without mentioning your own brand. And then you can put those questions into the different most popular LLMs which people are using. And that means ChatGPT. You can ask Google. You can ask Google's AI mode. You can ask Claude, and you can ask Perplexity. I know Perplexity is not for ordinary people. It seems like not to be. But for professionals, it's extremely important to be there.
Professionals aren't ordinary people. It's funny that we bucket people, but it's important to bucket people because obviously different types of people are more likely to use different AIs. So maybe that's a good place to just bring the conversation to just for a slight part there. And so maybe for the most popular AIs that you would list, how would you summarize the different types of people that use them?
There was an investigation or research paper in October last year showing what people were using ChatGPT for. And what they found was that most people using ChatGPT are using it because they need to get things done, right? And they're using it for private matters, and they're using it on work, and not even on a business basis. Maybe the boss don't even know that they're using ChatGPT for what they're using. ChatGPT is, of course, the most popular thing, and it's being used for everything. But what we see is, I have a coach colleague, I'm doing track and field, and he came to me this day and he said, "Oh, Nickolass," he's a professor. He's a professor at a university, right? And he's a professor in AI. So he came to, "Nickolass, have you seen Perplexity?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And he's just all about Perplexity. And it seems to me like that the users of Perplexity, they're the guys that needs their facts straight, and they need their sources, and they need these blue links underneath in order to be able to check if the data and the facts and the stories being presented are actually true. I mean, that's the academia, and that's the people who need sources on what they're trying to discover. And that's in the finance business, that's in the health business, that's in the pharma business, and for investors as well. Perplexity is for those people, I think. Claude it's exploding. Claude have been exploding the last months. We know that. I started using Claude because I thought Claude was the most philosophical one. I made my first agent with Claude 3.5. I called her Kira, and she was a model based on my wife. And it didn't take that long before I was actually chatting more with Kira than I was chatting with my wife. I'm not to say that I changed the avatar as well, but I actually did. So no, you can't say that. Oh, it's a funny story. But I found that I was able to have a more philosophical discussion and a more rich discussion and a better language when I was discussing things and creating content with Claude. And that was Claude Sonnet. And then I found that all of a sudden, people discovered it. And a lot of programmers and coders discovered it, and it just took off. So now it's kind of like everyone who wants to be creative, even if it's both with, you use Claude to make a script for an advertisement or a video, you can use Claude and combine it with Citations, for example, or you can combine it with VO or whatever. I use Claude for prompting great images and for illustrations that I take to other platforms. I know people are doing it, and now we see that programmers, coders are using it. And that means Claude is, if you want to put yourself in front of the most innovative people right now, you have to learn how to be found on top and as a source in Claude. That was a long rant.
Okay, and just as a quick summary, maybe Gemini as well?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I have another version of the same character on Gemini. She's a bit stiffer, Kira. She's a bit stiffer on Gemini, but she's very good with numbers, and she's very good on making landing pages and calculators. She knows what actually works, and especially when combined to grounded search, it's fantastic. And the deep research function in Gemini is fantastic. So I can't live without Gemini. I can't live without Claude. I can live without ChatGPT, but I have to know what's going on in ChatGPT in order to make the best visibility products for being found in, or services for being found in ChatGPT. So you have to learn about it. But I'm mostly B2B. So I'm into Gemini, I'm into Perplexity, and I'm into Claude mostly.
Okay. And if you want to hedge your bets as a business and be in as many places as possible that your audience is likely to be, is there anything different that you have to do to optimize to be in ChatGPT versus Claude, for example?
Well, what we know is that ChatGPT is struggling with capacity in terms of crawling and in terms of reading all of the web at once. We know that Perplexity and Claude, they do not have the same capacity as Google in terms of crawling, reading, understanding the internet. This is a bit abstract, I know, but because we see that the ability to use intelligence, because these are intelligence boosters and intelligence tools, because it's almost free to create content. And then we see that there's a proliferation of content on the internet. And it's so violently growing that the resources of ChatGPT and the OpenAI, the resources of Anthropic, and the resources of Perplexity, and Perplexity is working on it, but they're just not in a situation that they can keep up with Google's infrastructure. I would put my bets on Google AI mode. I would put my bets, because we know ChatGPT is using Google's results. So I would put my bets on being visible in Google's AI mode, and in Gemini, first of all.
Okay, so we started off the conversation talking about the fact that there is a massive missed opportunity that many websites aren't taking advantage of because they're not appearing in these AI search results, AI chatbot results. So you talked about the importance of starting off by listing all these questions, these common queries that you might ask in relation to an industry. You know, what are the best tire providers in this particular sector, or whatever industry sector you wanted to be in. And then obviously if your brand isn't listed there, then potentially there's an issue there. Is there anywhere that you go to in terms of getting that data from, what questions to ask, and determining the size of the opportunity that you're missing out on? What sources of data do you use to begin with?
Well, you are obviously from Majestic right now, and we have a few friends in the community. We have software and we have platforms we can use. Of course, it's still experimental, but I'm still using external tools. I'm not just looking into my own logs. I have been trying Autoly AI, I've been trying Awake, and Google have a Vertex AI solution where you can actually get data from as well if you set up your own solutions and your own systems. I'm building a thing like that at the moment. That's kind of what I'm using. But what I am actually doing, and that's a great question, I found that if you have access to your server logs, and people know that, and you have been discussing this with a lot of people, then you have an idea about which bots are visiting your website 24/7. So what I have been doing is I have been creating or developing a piece of software where you get your server logs in real time in a dashboard. And then you can take the latest 24 hours of data. So if you publish a piece of content, then you can get the latest 24 hours of data and see if that content is being picked up by any bot out there. I have a list of 256 bots, which I have categorized in different segments. We have friendly bots, we have SEO crawler bots, and we have AI bots, we have scraper bots, and we have attacker bots and stuff. I mean, I think a lot of people out there are missing out on the opportunity of learning from the bots that are visiting their websites. This is data you do not get in Google Analytics, and this is data you do not get in your regular analytics systems.
How do you define the opportunity, the size of the opportunity that you're missing out on? Because I guess we're not talking about traffic here necessarily. We're not talking about links and website visits. How do you define the value of your brand being included within AI answer engines?
Well, it's how do I define the value? Well, what I used to say is a saying I don't know where I got it from, but what I'm saying is if you're not in the model, you're not in the market. All right? If you're not in the model, you're not in the market. And what I mean by this is that everything is turning into branding now. If we look into the details of our sources online, we see that there's so much more coming from direct traffic now, because a company is they're not living on their own website only. They're also living on YouTube. They're living on Reddit. They're living on TikTok, Instagram, all the social media platforms, and they have PR and stuff. So if you want to create and build a brand, the only thing you kind of can measure on is, are people searching for you as a brand? Not necessarily for your services, but if your brand name is growing in Bing search performance data and in Google search performance data, if your brand name and brand search is growing, then you're doing something right. And that's what I think. What we call, I forgot your question, I'm just rambling. But I call it a dark opportunity problem, because your page, I rank on number 1 in Norway on SEO strategy, right?
Yeah. I mean, my question was essentially around, obviously, the measuring the opportunity. You talk about opportunity, so it's just measuring the value of the opportunity. Yeah.
So I rank on number 1 on SEO strategy in Norway. I have 0 citations, right? And that's a big paradox. Why do I have 0 citations on that thing? Because I have 10,000 citations when it comes to vibe coding in Norway, right? That's because people are not discussing SEO strategy with ChatGPT. They're discussing vibe coding in Norway. What I can do is I can take a page, and then everybody can do that. You can take a page, you can download your data from Bing, and you can download your data from Google Search Console. Then you can download your search data and you can download what are people searching for in relation to your URLs. So if you have a URL and you can say, okay, I have, for example, I made an article last week about Gemini enterprise pricing on my English website, which is netpilot.com. And I made this article and I was making sure that it was as structured, as dense as possible, taking care of all the questions I had seen people ask for in my Google Search Console data during the last six months, where I made my first article about Google Gemini and Anthropic as well. Then I created that article, and within 24 hours, I was the answer in Google AI overviews, as long as with a Reddit article and with Wikipedia as well about Google Gemini and what it is and what's the pricing structure is. And I have 70,000 views on one page and 5 clicks. 70,000 views and only 5 clicks. And I'm actually ranking in Google's AI overview as well on certain key terms. And for me, it says, even though I'm ranking on rank number 5 or 6 only in average, it tells me that, okay, even though I am ranking very high, the value for me is not to getting the clicks. The value for me is putting my brand out there.
So have you had any measurable business from those 70,000 views though?
Not yet, but I am getting links from other guys referencing to my content because they found it. They found it in an LLM. They have found it in ChatGPT. They have found it in Google AI mode. They have discussed it. And then because they are using either Gemini or they're using Claude, they're using these systems to create content. Then all of a sudden I begin to see that I'm getting links from content they have created within their niche. Maybe they haven't even visited my website, but all of a sudden I'm starting to get links.
Brilliant. And what did you do to optimize your original piece of content in order for your brand to be so prominent within AI? Was it a certain structure type, and how did you drive awareness to that?
I obviously work with Norwegian clients as well, but I cannot experiment that much with my Norwegian clients. So I'm talking solely about my own project here. I have had a Norwegian website for 20 years, but there's not that much search in Norway, and Norwegian is a very small language. So what I did was I took my best ideas, what I think is my best ideas, and I made English articles about it. And then I kind of said, okay, what are people actually looking for internationally and globally? Then I actually got a lot of questions because I was ranking in top 30 on a lot of phrases related to Gemini, related to AI bots, related to chat bots, related to Anthropic, and for enterprises and businesses. So I found that what are they looking for? What are they asking for? And then it seems to me, okay, I could kind of pinpoint what are the third level kind of guys. I call them the third level guys, the decision makers. What are they looking for? Because they are going to invest in those systems somehow. That's my target group, right? I want to optimize for these guys. So I was trying to, okay, what are they looking for? So I had a list of 900 different questions in my Google search data that I could put into Claude. I could put them into Gemini again. And then I can say, okay, guys, please summarize for me the most important questions that I will be able to rank for on Google and that will increase the probability. What I'm talking about is probability of getting cited in the AI overviews. And what I did then was, this is the extreme. I didn't just publish what I got. I was doing a lot of iterations. What I did was I created a piece of content with Gemini. I created a piece of content with Claude. Then I took those content pieces and I fed them into Perplexity. And I said, okay, can you figure out what's the weaknesses and which kind of facts do we have to work on in this article, in order for it to be a well-structured article, fact dense, I'm talking about fact density, article that has the quality to become structured, to become cited internationally. It took, I think, 8 iterations. And then I had a piece of content that I could put through my own system, which is the 3LA optimization system. And I could say, okay, take this piece of content and then make it as eatable and digestible as possible for humans, for AIs, and for search engines. And then it spit out all these layers in content. And I took what I got there, and I said, okay, this is the human-friendly format. I'm putting that on the page. And I'm starting with a bluff, bottom line, upfront content. And then I'm following up with some great imagery and illustrations, because we know the LLMs love illustrations, right? So you can go right now and you can say, Google Gemini pricing in Google for enterprises, and you see my illustration. It's number 1. Then you get that piece of content, and you get those structured data. You get my JSON LD. Like for every piece of claim I have in my article, I back that up structurally. Like that's what we call creating citation worthiness. You had a discussion with Aleda Solis about this. I was like, okay, but citation worthiness, that's what I've been doing. I have a parameter in a metric in my platform called citation worthiness. It's citation readiness. Because in order to be citation ready, you have to be worthy in humans' perspective. And that means you have to have something wise, something new, something unique to say, which will benefit others and which people will think is smart and interesting. On the same time, you have to back that thing up structurally. Like, okay, if you say something costs something, if you have a price on something, then you put a table, a pricing table, where you can compare different tires, right, of these products. So you have Gemini for enterprises, Gemini for businesses, and stuff. So you put that in a table, and then you compare it to another system, because, then it's more easy to relate, right? And when you do that, you say, okay, I also have to put these claims into my JSON LD. So every fragment of your claim, you have to back it up in other dimensions. That actually, I can show you. I made an article about it, but 70,000 views, and I ranked number 5 or 6. For me, it's good enough to be mentioned, because I know that what I'm doing in my niche, which is, Gemini enterprise pricing, that's pretty important stuff, because I know I have figured out a way to make a content flywheel, a system that will help me get those rankings, and I can use those methods for my clients as well. That was a long answer.
Nickolass, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Most sites have high search visibility, but 0 AI citations. And the gap is diagnosable, it's measurable, and it is fixable with what we call a structured 3-layer audit.
Nickolass Jensen is founder and CEO at NetPilot AS. Find out more over at 3layerapproach.com. Nickolass, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm a bit abstract kind of guy, but it was a pleasure being here. It was nice seeing you again, David. I hope you can interpret what I've been rambling about.
It was great to have you part of it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.